that time before and during the Revolution is a great time in American history because there was so much freedom in the streets, and you can actually see it, and you see the founding fathers complaining about it. You see John Adams and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson talking about walking down the streets of Philadelphia or New York and being appalled by what they're seeing, which was people doing what they wanted to do. Now, some of it wasn't so nice. I mean, some of it was selling sex, some of it was being drunk on the streets, some of it was dancing, wildly at some saloon or something. But you did see a lot of this kind of libertine freedom. And I know that some libertarians have a problem with the libertine and some don't. And that's kind of, I think, one interesting split among libertarians, right? There's sort of the pro-libertine, or the ones who are at least tolerant of the libertine, and those who are very hostile to it and don't want to see anything like that. But yes, that period in early American history is a time of immense, I call, personal, individual freedom, which you might also call libertine freedom.
Didn't Sam Adams have a particularly beef with British soldiers because they partied all the time and didn't show the proper moral behavior? I
don't know. He might have. It would certainly make sense. Yes, they, to a man, every one of Sam Adams was actually one of the less puritanical ones, but to a man, every founding father, this is really important, publicly was completely puritanical. Now, privately, there were a bunch, they drank like most Americans, which was like fish during that time. Americans drank just incredible amounts of alcohol during that time. But publicly, every one of them towed the Puritan line. They were staunchly opposed to drinking in public and their public statements. They were all about discipline and order and efficiency, and being a good citizen, and merging, this is the most important thing, merging one's identity, one's individual identity, with the new emergent nation state of America, right? So you are no longer Matt and I'm no longer Thad, we are now Americans, right? So the beginning of American nationalism. Now, this didn't always comport with their private lives. They were having sex with slaves, and they were drinking like fish, and they were probably fornicating in all sorts of ways they weren't supposed to be. But what they said to Americans was, look, here's the deal. If we're going to be a democracy, even a limited democracy, right, the people who get the vote can't be doing these things. You've got to, this is when sort of people started to understand what democracy really meant. It means discipline. It means more responsibility than it does rights, it turns out, right? Because if the people govern, which is the definition of democracy, well, you can't have the governors be a bunch of drunks fornicating in the streets, right? And so that's what the founding fathers said. And they also said, and this is really interesting, they said that democracy not only requires that kind of intense self-discipline, it actually creates it in people. Because what you're doing, what the founding fathers were doing was saying, okay, we're going to take away sovereignty from the crown, and we're going to give it to you, or at least some of you. What a gift. Wow, this thing. You now own and control and manage this country. Wow. And a lot of people got excited by that, and they disciplined themselves, right? And so it's part of classical liberalism, too. Classical liberalism teaches, right, that we are self-sovereign, but that requires intense self-regulation, right? This was what John Locke's whole argument was, right? And the founding fathers took that up. So, I'm all for, right, the government staying off of us and in the classical liberal sense, leaving us to our own devices. But there's a lot of moralizing that goes on in the classical liberal tradition, which I think is not stupid. And it's not because they're just uptight. I think that it's actually the logic of both democracy and classical liberalism is that we have to moralize against ourselves all the time, against our own bodily desires, which creates this very uncomfortable tension in a lot of Americans, right? We want to be good. We want to be good, but boy, do we love watching TV, and we love drinking whiskey, and we love watching porn. So, and all sorts of stuff, right? I mean, and that's really true. I mean, there's a really stark, like, immense gulf, actually, between sort of American popular culture and what we do with our leisure time, and what we say and how we behave in public, and what we say in schools and in our workplaces and in the military and on TV, and then when we run for office, right? We're all sort of good, upstanding American Puritans when we're in public. But my God,